How's it going, everybody? My name is Rinzler here, back again for another video, and welcome back to the channel. As usual, at the start of this video, I'd like to say that in this context, the word shoot means to tell the absolute truth about something, and I'm not actually shooting up nobody. Alright, because I know, especially with this kind of video, putting the word shoot and school in the title is going to raise some eyebrows. So I'm just letting you guys know, as usual, that shoot in this context means to tell the absolute truth, not to actually shoot somebody with bullets. So today I'm going to be answering Robert Felez's question in the comments of my last shoot video about pursuing tomboys. He asked me if I could talk about my time in high school. He said he was curious. Not sure if he actually is curious or if he just wants to see me fumble or whatever. I know there's a lot of trolls online, but I wanted to talk about this anyway. So now's the time, I guess. Summer vacation's over for everybody who's still going to school. So, this is the first time that I'm not going back to school in late August because there's no school to go back to. I graduated back in June. So it's a little strange, but I guess now is the best time for me to look back on my time in high school and, talk about it with you guys. So, man, high school, I used to really not like it at all. Like in my first year or two of high school, I really did not want to be there at all. And there were some days I didn't want to go to high school. I mean, there's days that people don't want to go to work. There's days that people don't want to go anywhere. So it wasn't necessarily that I didn't want to go to school because I didn't like school. It's just usually because I had something else going on if I didn't want to be there. And I just didn't want to, deal with school problems at the same time as home problems or something like that. So usually I didn't hate school. I usually tried to find the bright spot about everything when it came to school. Not the case in my first year or two in school. My first year or two of school, I kind of consider myself a bad kid. I went through a lot of phases during my 4 years of high school. Like, let me just list them off for you, or attempt to list them off for you in order. So I was emo. Then I was a colorful nerd. Then I was a wigger. W at the beginning of that. Don't worry. Then I was a fitness nut. Then I was extreme sports guy. Then I was a chef. Then I was a priest for my own made-up religion. Long story. Then I was bittersweet blue gold with the blue hair and everything. Then I pretended to be bisexual, which was not true because I'm straight as a whistle. I just did that to get attention. Let's see. Then I was happy about everything in the world version of me. Oh, wait, no. I was goth. Then I was happy about everything in the world version of me. A weeaboo. Then I was moody and depressed. Then I was bald, moody and depressed. Then I was a real life superhero, moody and depressed. Then then I was kind of just a drifter for the rest of high school. I didn't really do much to stand out. And then I graduated, and I think graduating was probably the best thing that happened to me because even though I didn't hate school, it feels good to have it all be over because it feels like I have more room to grow now that I don't have to worry about going somewhere and listening to what people tell me I have to do and doing what people are expecting of me to do. I can just be at home and do what I feel like. And I know when I finally get my first job, that's not going to be the case no more. But it does feel good to be able to, let my creativity shine through now that I'm not as restricted by school guidelines. Um, so, it does feel really good to graduate. And I think graduating was probably the best thing that happened to me. But I didn't hate high school, all right? My first year or two of school, I really didn't like it that much. I didn't like eighth grade either. I moved here in between seventh and eighth grade. So I moved from Vermont. I spent the first 13 years of my life living in Vermont. So kindergarten through seventh grade, I was in Vermont, and then I moved to New Hampshire for eighth grade, and that's where I've been ever since. Um, sorry. So I didn't like eighth grade all that much, but this is a video about high school. Uh, Unfortunately, my bad luck with eighth grade kind of rubbed off on me in ninth grade, and I had a really piss poor first year in high school. I didn't, and most of it was actually my own fault. I was really moody and bitter and depressed about everything, so I didn't take my schoolwork seriously. I focused all my efforts on YouTube and nothing else. I was, just not in the best spot. I was over 200 pounds in fat, not muscle. I was just in a really bad spot. And then I got obsessed with anime, and so I started watching anime all the time instead of doing my schoolwork. And then I got involved in an incident on my YouTube channel that caused me to quit. Basically, I used to make rant videos on YouTube all the time, talking about what I hated about everything. I was just a negative Nelly. Nowadays, I look back on those videos and kind of cringe. Luckily, you guys can't see them no more because if you watch them, you'd look at me with like a really bad opinion of me probably because those videos are really mean spirited. I was not myself during my freshman year. And those videos really reflected on the person that I'm trying to bury deep down now because, man, I was just a bitter, bitter soul during my freshman year, and I think everybody else could tell that. Uh, you know, so I really regret neglecting my schoolwork and pissing people off on YouTube because I made a lot of critical videos about my school on YouTube, and I feel really bad about it now. And those videos ended up causing me to quit because people at school were bullying me because of the things I was saying in those videos, and I deserved to get heckled for that stuff because the things I was saying were really bad. They were in really bad taste, and I shouldn't have said those things. One of my rant videos, I was ranting about the school's weight room because what had happened is I refused to change clothes for gym class because I was, such a stubborn, bitter person back then. I didn't like to listen to what people told me to do. So I didn't change for gym class, and I ended up getting in a lot of trouble for that because that caused my gym teacher to take an immediate dislike into me because I kept rebelling against her authority. And so, because of that, I actually ended up failing gym class in my freshman year. And so, she assigned me to go to the weight room for an hour every day after school for 6 days in a row, 6 school days. And so, I did that. And because I was an idiot back then, I decided to make a rant video talking about why the weight room is so damn terrible. Why it's so loud and everybody yells at each other. It's so horrible. Of course, nowadays I work out all the time, so I have a lot more respect for people who go to the gym and coach at the gym and try to improve themselves. I have a lot more of a respect for that than I used to when I was a freshman. Because when I was a freshman, I didn't care about nobody but myself. Really, I mean, I cared about my girlfriend at the time, but like mostly I just cared about myself. So I didn't care what people thought of me, or at least that's what I was telling myself. Because when people were bullying me, I started to feel really bad about the things I was saying. So I made a video critiquing the weight room or whatever, and I guess somebody told the gym teacher about it because the gym teacher extended me to an extra day at the gym. And we were having like a full on rivalry. Like we got into arguments with each other. She told me to keep my opinions to myself. Like it was a really bad time. And I really wish that I'd, not made that video. I really wish that I'd shown more respect to the people in the weight room because they deserved more respect than I was giving them. Um, anyway, after I was done with the weight room stuff, I thought that me and that gym teacher were never going to be able to make amends. And then I ended up having her again in my sophomore year. And by the time I was in my sophomore year, I was a lot different because I had been off YouTube for a long time by that point. And, during the summer, I became like a fitness nut. I started working out all the time. I started to diet. I started eating carrots for breakfast, carrots for lunch, carrots for dinner. That's all I was really eating. That I was only drinking water and milk. I gave up on soda altogether. I exercised every damn day of the week. I lost 40 pounds, gained abs. I was in really, really good shape in my sophomore year. That was when I was in my prime. So when I came back to gym class in my sophomore year, my gym teacher, I had the same gym teacher, but me and her actually ended up being able to make amends that year. That was actually her retirement year because she was in like her early 70s by that point. And, I did everything she told me to do. I stayed behind after the class was already over to help her clean up. Like if we put out cones or whatever to play like baseball in the gym, then I would be the one to help her clean up all the equipment or whatever. And we played floor hockey. I put all the hockey sticks back and the ball back and the nets back. I would always help out. I tried my best to encourage people who are having a hard time with their routines. I tried my best to, just be a really good example in that class. And it ended up really paying off for me because I got some extra workouts in, and I earned the respect of that same teacher I was feuding with the year before. And I remember at the end of the semester, she came up to me and she's like, "Man, I thought after last year that I was always going to not like you or whatever, that like we were never going to get along, but you've earned my respect this year." And she's like, I wish you the best of luck with your life. I hope that you keep doing what you're doing now and keep setting a good example for people. And I went to shake her hand, in a sign of respect, and she actually gave me a hug. And in that moment, I just felt so much accomplishment. I felt great that I was able to make amends with this person that used to hate me and I used to hate her. Now like she became like one of my favorites. And I loved that class. I had so much fun. And it was in that moment that I realized that things aren't as, black and white as I thought. Like, I can't just say I hate a teacher, because it's hard to hate a teacher as working so hard, to teach kids in their own way. And I earned a lot of respect for my gym teacher, and I earned a lot of respect for all the teachers after that. And I made a point of trying to see the good in all my teachers after that. Um, there were some teachers I wasn't particularly fond of in my freshman year that I learned to like later on. Like, I had physical science in my freshman year, and I failed it because I was neglectful in my work. Science has never really been my thing to begin with. So I ended up actually failing physical science, and so I had to go to a summer school recovery process for that class, and I actually was able to pass. Although a funny story is that since I didn't have enough credit to become a sophomore until I passed physical science, I had to pass physical science over the summer or I was going to get held back a year. So I did that. And then I go back to school in late August to get my new student ID, but I guess the credit didn't transfer in time. So I actually ended up getting two freshman IDs instead of a freshman and sophomore ID. And I actually got the runaround that entire year because I kept going to the office to try and get my new student ID, my sophomore ID, and they kept finding excuses not to give it to me, which I'm not that mad about. I mean, it's just an ID. It's just a number. I actually took a Sharpie and I crossed out the 9 and put a 10 next to it, to symbolize I was a 10th grader instead of a ninth grader like the card said I was, because on paper I was actually a 10th grader, but my ID still said I was a ninth grader, which was untrue. But anyway, that's not the point of the story. The point of the story is that I really didn't get along with my physical science teacher at all. Like, I really didn't like her that much. Like, me and her really never saw eye to eye. She saw me as a disruption to the class, and she always tried to, help me out, tell me what I need to do to get my to recover my my grades or whatever. And I kept like not doing what she told me to do, and I regret that now. Like, looking back, one of the things I wish I could redo is my freshman year, because like my freshman year I was a terrible fucking student. I didn't do anything I was supposed to do, and I failed a lot. So like, looking back, I really wish that I put more effort into these classes, because looking back, these classes were actually really easy, and I should have put more work into it. But anyway, so she always tried to help me out, and I just kept like rebuffing her, saying this class isn't important. I was just being a total asshole. I'm surprised that she tolerated me at all, actually. And I had to go to her class for E block. And E block at my school was like the study hall period that we would have between second and third block. Because basically at my school, we didn't have periods, we had blocks. A period is a 40-minute class, a block is an 80-minute class. So instead of having 8 40-minute periods, we would have 4 80-minute blocks, if that makes any sense. So anyway, so in between blocks 2 and 3, we had a study hall period called E block. where you could go to any classroom if you need to recover. And I often went to my physical science class against my will to recover. And I usually just came there and sat around and pretended to work, which I regret now, obviously. But at the time, I was like, man, I don't need to do any of this stuff. I'm above this. I'm going to be a big shot YouTuber. I don't need to do my schoolwork. Like, that was my attitude back then. And I seriously look back and cringe now. Like, shit, I was not a good person back then at all. I was the bully, really. But one thing I really appreciate from that particular teacher is that for every year I had in that school after my freshman year, in my sophomore, junior, and senior years, I often passed that teacher in the hallway. And with each phase, I changed my look a lot. Like I went from being clean shaven to having a full beard to having a goatee to having blue hair to having red hair to having no hair. I kept changing my look a lot. When I was goth, I wore like makeup. Like I kept changing my look all the time. But that teacher always recognized me. And whenever I passed her in the hallway, she would always say hi to me. She would always be like, hi, Max, because my real name's Max. And like, I always appreciated that from her. I always appreciated how, even though I changed my look and even though I was no longer in her class, that she still, acknowledged my presence and smiled and said hi to me in the hallway and, told me she hoped I was doing good with my classes. And I really appreciate that because teachers don't necessarily have to keep remembering their students after they've already left. And she never forgot about me. And, looking back, I really wish I had another class with her because I feel like me and her would have gotten along a lot better after I matured the fuck up and stopped being such a stupid bitch. Because I was a real bitch during my freshman year. I cannot emphasize enough how much of an asshole I was during the ninth grade. Like, it has to be seen to be believed. If any of you guys watching this ever went to school with me during the ninth grade, you might remember I was a real ass. So, and looking back, I cringe, and I really wish I could have done it all better. I was in ninth grade algebra one, and I actually ended up getting transferred to pre-algebra because I wasn't doing any of my work. I kept, fucking around with my friends instead of doing the work that was put in front of me, and I didn't try, and I really should have tried, and I didn't try. Pre-algebra was a class I feel like I really needed to have to regain my confidence in math, because math was always a weak subject with me, but as the years went on, I got better and better with math. And I think that geometry was my best math class. I got along really well with the teacher in that class. I got along really well with the students in that class. And I kicked all kinds of ass with my grades for the most part. And even during my sophomore year with Algebra 1, which I redid, I had a lot of fun. The teacher was a hell of a lot of fun. The students, for the most part, were pretty nice to be around. The work wasn't always easy, but it always was worth it because the teacher was so much fun to be around. And that was sort of like a pattern with me. Like I ended up having a lot of classes where I didn't like the subject, but I liked the teacher who taught the subject. Like for instance, I was never particularly fond of Spanish class. I always had problems with Spanish class because like during Spanish 1, I kept kind of fucking around and not doing my work. So then when I had Spanishes 2 and 3, I didn't know the basics. So it became a real pain in the ass for me to pass those 3 classes. But one thing I do remember fondly is that every time I had a Spanish teacher, that Spanish teacher was always really good to me. Like they were always real nice. My junior year Spanish 1 teacher was always really nice to me. Always really patient with me, even though I was a bit disruptive and distracting. And during my Spanish 2 and 3, I had the same teacher for both of those classes, and she was super nice, super respectful and patient with all of her students. And she made jokes if you didn't understand, but they were like playful jokes. They weren't insulting. And she was always really patient with me in particular. She heard me out when I was having a bad time in my life and needed a break. She let me come for e-block and help me, fix I was doing wrong. And I tried my best to be as interested in what she was teaching as possible. And she made a subject I wasn't particularly fond of really good. I really enjoyed her class. And I actually had her husband for English 2 during my sophomore year, and I liked his class as well. We read Raisin in the Sun, and I actually was assigned to write an extra chapter to that story that would explain what happened after the family left their home, if you're aware of the events of the story. And I was reading the script that I wrote out loud in front of the class, and I got down on my knees and started doing like a falsetto voice because I was reading the role of like a 7 or 8 year old. So I got on my knees and started doing this cringy ass falsetto voice, and I made the class laugh, and I thought it was really funny. I always wore sunglasses when I went up in front of the room because I didn't want people to see the fear in my eyes, because I used to have like wicked stage fright going up in front of the class. I still have stage fright, but like I only get scared if I'm in front of like an actual crowd. Like if I'm in front of a classroom, I don't get scared really. So yeah, man, I'll tell you what. Like seriously, during my sophomore year with that gym teacher, I really did try to see the best in every teacher I had after that. And there's really nothing bad I have to say about any of my teachers at this point. They were all really good. I did have one teacher in my freshman year who actually ended up getting arrested for sending nudes to his students. Luckily, I was not one of those students. And it really disappointed me when I heard that, what had happened with him, because from what I could tell, I actually thought he was a good teacher. He taught me a lot about the Russian Revolution and the French Revolution. He was really charismatic and energetic with his teaching style. And I was really disappointed in him when he got arrested because he had so much talent and it just got wasted. Obviously I'm not condoning what he did because that guy deserved to get his teacher's license revoked. But man, it really sucked because I actually thought his class was really good. Like his replacement was just as good as him though, so I have no complaints. And besides that, I really have nothing negative to say about any of my teachers. They all had something really nice about them. They were usually really patient with me. Uh, and I tried to see the best in all of them and all of their subjects. Even if I wasn't particularly fond of what they were teaching, I usually got along famously with all my teachers. Like during my sophomore year, I had power mechanics class, and I wasn't particularly fond of mechanics. I'm still not. I still think it's kind of boring. Maybe I'll change my mind one day about that. But as it stands, I still think that subject's kind of boring. But the guy who taught that class was a real man's man, and he was really funny, and he was really energetic, and he knew exactly how to keep people engaged in his subject. So I have no complaints about him really because he was such a great teacher. So even if the subject he was teaching wasn't something I liked, then usually I really liked the teacher who taught it. And I seriously cannot recall a single teacher that I actively did not like. There was one teacher I had in my junior year, and he actually moved me to a different class because it was a class meant for mostly seniors and I was a junior, and he didn't think I could handle it, so he transferred me to a different class, which at the time I really didn't like him for. I got really mad at that teacher. Um, but I actually ended up kind of, earning a new respect for him later because basically what happened is I had driver's ed during my junior year, and I went to driver's ed class at the same school at night, and I left the hallway area to go to the bathroom, and the door locked behind me. So I left the school so I could go all the way around to the front door, but then that door got locked. So I banged on the door, and that same teacher who transferred me actually was the one who answered the door and let me inside when I was gonna freeze to death because it was winter time and I was in like a t-shirt. So like I earned a newfound respect for that teacher because he helped stop me from freezing to death, and I really appreciate that. So there's just nothing bad I really have to say about any of my teachers. They were all really nice and patient with me for the most part. In the class that teacher transferred me in, I actually ended up being my favorite class, English 3. English 3 is hands down my absolute favorite class I ever had in high school. Because for one thing, I had my e-block teacher for English 3 because basically you have the same e-block teacher all 4 years of high school. So she'd seen me through all my phases. She'd seen me through all my ups and downs. She'd seen me when I was suicidal and really down on my luck. So she was like always there for me. She was such a sweetheart of a teacher. and I really enjoyed, being in her e-block. Sorry, my throat's being really weird with me today. Um, so so then I had that same teacher for English 3, and it was perfect because all my friends were in that class with me, including Adrenaline and my old writing partner, Oscar. They were all there with me. And yeah, I'm sad to say I'm not really friends with any of those guys anymore. We kind of went our separate ways after graduation, I'm sad to say. But I have a lot of fond memories because it was like all my friends were there. It was taught by my favorite teacher, and it's my favorite subject as well. English is hands down my favorite subject. I love to read and write. It's my favorite thing to do in school, and I just had such a blast reading Hamlet and Of Mice and Men and The Great Gatsby. Just all really nice stories I don't think would have worked if anybody else was teaching it. You know, and I read a lot of nice books during my English classes, like I read To Kill a Mockingbird and Lord of the Flies. And I know that these are stories with bad things that happen in them, but like they were really fun to read in a classroom. They made Shakespeare really fun. I really enjoyed reading Romeo and Juliet in my freshman year, and I really liked reading Julius Caesar in my sophomore year. Really enjoyed reading Hamlet in my junior year. One of my friends, he has like this accent. I don't know how to explain it. He has like a lisp or something. So like when he was trying to recite Shakespeare in front of the class, I being a bit of an immature asshole just kept laughing at him, and Adrenaline was laughing too. And everybody in the class started laughing because we were laughing. And I felt really bad. He like playfully punched me in the arm when he sat back down again. And I feel really bad for laughing at him because it was really immature of me. But I don't know why I thought it was so fucking funny at the time. Hearing him like repeating words and trying to sound them out, I thought it was funny for some reason at the time. I look back kind of, I look back on that now and kind of wish I was a little more polite about it. But it is what it is. That's what happened. And when I say I was laughing, I'm not saying like I was giggling. I was laughing really hard. Like my face was hotter than Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman, and there was tears in my eyes. Like I was crying. I was laughing so hard, and I feel so bad for laughing at that poor kid. Like I can't explain to words how bad I feel just talking about it. I know I'm laughing a little bit, but that's just because it's kind of funny to think about it, but also a little bit sad at the same time. So I just had fun in pretty much all my classes. There's something I liked about everything. The teachers were always really nice, even if the subjects weren't something I was particularly fond of. Lunch periods weren't always fun, though. Some of my lunch periods were more fun than others, but for the most part, I actually ended up eating lunch by myself. There was these circular tables near one of the food bars with no chairs. You had to stand up to eat on those, and nobody else was around them. So I usually just went there, and I didn't eat with anybody really. And I think that some people might have felt bad for me. They probably saw me eating alone all the time, and they might have felt bad for me, or they might have been like, "Look at that loser! He's eating all by himself. Oh, he's gonna be a school shooter one day." There's actually been people who've said that to me. They're like, "You're gonna be a school shooter one day." I guess they were kind of right because I'm shooting on high school right now. But like they meant like shoot them with guns, and I think that that's really mean to say to somebody like, "Oh, you're gonna commit mass murder one day." Like that's like the meanest fucking thing I've ever heard. Like I couldn't think of something worse you could say to somebody. I mean, there are worse things to say, but like that's probably the worst thing anybody's ever told me. Like I just I wish that nobody ever gets told that again because it's like a really hurtful thing. And I know that I try to, be all strong and confident sounding in these videos, but like as I mentioned in my Tomboys video, I get hurt. I'm willing to admit when I'm hurting, and I was hurting when I heard that. When I heard that said about me. So I hope that I wouldn't wish that insult to my worst enemy. Like that's a terrible fucking thing to say. And my friends were told the same thing at different points in their life. And I just I think it's horrible. One of my tomboy girlfriends was mistaken for a guy all the time and made fun of for being trans, and I felt awful for her. And she's joined the military now. I wish her the best of luck with that. I hope my sister comes home safe and sound, and I hope she gets to have the surgery that she wants. Just why do people bully people like that? I don't understand. It's just fucking mean. It doesn't do much except give you a giggle for like half a second. And admittedly, I used to be a bit of a bully. There was this one time I was in lunch and I just randomly decided to throw something across the cafeteria for a quick laugh, and it landed in somebody's food. And that kid's friend, he's like this big jock kind of guy, and he was a really nice guy actually. He always made sure that people weren't stepping out of line. He always made sure that people weren't getting bullied. He was a really nice guy. I unfortunately never really got to be his friend, which is a shame because the guy was he was a really nice guy. I had mythology class with him during my senior year. I'm not gonna say his name because people who are regular who know me in real life, they probably know who I'm talking about. And it's not adrenaline, by the way. I'm not talking about adrenaline. This guy was a completely different guy. He came all the way across the cafeteria to where I was, and he asked me if I was the one who threw that garbage all the way into his friend's food, and I told him that I was. And he gave me like a nice talking to, let me know that what I did wasn't right. And at the time, I was like, "Oh yeah, 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 sure." But now in hindsight, I'm really glad that he gave me that talk because I really needed it at that point in my life. And I hope that that doesn't happen to other people. I would hate to eat lunch and have trash end up in my food. That would be terrible. So I understand what I did now is really wrong, and I hope that that doesn't happen to other people. And I'm glad that that kid gave me a talking to, and I hope that he has good advice like that for a lot of other people because the guy really does know how to get through to people. Um, I just, for the most part, I didn't hate school. I just had fun. I had fond memories of everything that I did. I really enjoyed my English classes. I started to really enjoy my math classes. Even my computer classes. I really thought I was going to hate my computer classes. Uh, the teacher, I don't think a lot of students talked really bad about the computer teacher at my school, which is a damn shame because she was really nice. I really got along with her well, and she gave me a soaring letter of recommendation that I'm hoping to use to get a computer job. And she was just really nice to me. She made me her teacher's assistant. She made me her TA. She was so confident in me, and I really appreciate her for giving me such an opportunity. She put me in charge of the ELL kids in that class, and I helped the ELL kids learn how to use the computer to the best of my ability. And I feel really good about doing that. She was always giving me opportunities to prove myself, and I tried my best to be like just the best example for her. And these nice teachers, they always brought out the absolute best in me. They were always patient with me, and even if the subject wasn't that good, they it was just the teachers that really made the class so good for me. And I just look back on high school with really great memories now. And I wish that I could go back and do some of these classes over again because I was such an asshole in my freshman year that these nice teachers really, I really didn't deserve those nice teachers back when I was such an asshole. So I really wish I could go back, the way I am now and redo it all, because I really didn't deserve such nice teachers at such a bad time in my life, really. So yeah, I mean, if you're still in high school and you're watching this video, because I know that there's some people who went to school with me who still have like a year or two left of high school to get through. If you're still in high school now when you're watching this video, or if you've been to high school and you remember high school, in a negative way, just be patient with your teachers. That's the moral of the story. Is like your teachers, they probably are having a hard time too. Imagine they have to be there an hour earlier than you, possibly 2 hours, and they have to stay up to 2 or 3 hours later than you too. They don't get paid a lot of money, and the kids are just constantly disruptive. They don't give them any sort of an opportunity to prove that they deserve to be their teacher. It's just the more of the story is just like show your teachers a little bit more respect. They're trying to be patient with you. They're trying to teach you everything that they've spent their lives learning themselves and learn how to teach others. And they're just trying to see the best in you. And if you think they're treating you like shit, then that's probably because you've pushed them to their limit. And I pushed a lot of teachers to their limit during my freshman year when I was still an asshole, when I was still a bully. So, the moral of the story is just, be patient with your teachers if you can. I know that sounds really cheesy and cliche. And there's always going to be that asshole in the comments who's like, oh, well, the teacher did this to me. The teacher slapped me on the wrist with a ruler or something like that. Or they were really mean to me for no reason. And I'm not saying that every teacher is a saint. Like there are some asshole teachers out there, but most of the time they're assholes because they're just so stressed out and they got problems going on in their life just like everybody else. Teachers try to put up a front so that the students don't know if there's anything wrong with them, but some teachers are better at hiding that than others. So just keep that in mind. If you think that you hate your teacher, then really sit down and think about what they've taught you so far and try to appreciate what you're being taught while you're still there, because knowledge is power. Knowledge, just to quote Tywin Lannister, knowledge is power. And I really wish that I'd shown more dedication to my schoolwork. I know it sounds really cliche, as I said, but seriously, looking back now, high school is a lot better than I remember it being when I was still there. And I wish anybody who's still going through high school, or maybe you're in middle school or watching this video and you're anxious about starting high school. I wish all of you guys the best of luck because looking back now, high school is a whole lot of fun, even if there was a lot of drama and a lot of problems. There was, it was a lot of fun. The school is like a small city, and it was a city full of good and bad memories, but memories nonetheless. So I always look back on high school fondly. So, so thank you, Robert Felez, for giving me this recommendation. I really enjoyed talking about this with you guys. If you enjoyed this video, remember to give it a thumbs up. Share this video with all of your various friends and family on all of your social media platforms. Ring that notification bell and let me know in the comments down below if you liked or didn't like this video. And give me some recommendations for more shoot videos that you'd like me to see done in the future. And I'll see all you dudes and chicks in the next video.